Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Today's episode we're going to take a look at some of my favorite games on the PlayStation 1 from one of my favorite publishers, if not my favorite publisher of all time, Working Designs. These guys really went the extra mile back in the day when a lot of companies weren't doing stuff like this to give us nice big box sets full of extras, foil embossed covers, big color manuals, just care and attention to detail that a lot of other publishers didn't do back in the day. Today's day and age, we've got tons of limited editions, everything's got a collector's edition, but back then this is one of the only publishers that were really going the extra mile to give fans like us these cool extras, and it was really appreciated back then. Some of my favorite games on the PlayStation, minus Silhouette Mirage. I could not get into that game for the life of me. I've tried, but sadly I'm just not a fan, so I'm not going to talk about it in this video. If you're a fan of the game, more power to you. I couldn't get into it. This video kind of comes full circle as well. In the past, years ago, I've done episodes on the SEGA CD Working Designs games and the SEGA Saturn Working Designs games, some of my favorite games on the respective platforms. So I hope you guys enjoy this PlayStation version of Working Designs. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Our Working Designs tale begins with Alundra, and this is a really special game for me personally. This was the first game that I bought on the PlayStation from Working Designs, and I gotta say, it's one of those games that you don't really realize just how good it is while you're playing it. Now granted, I loved the game from the start, but it wasn't until I came back and revisited it some years later that I realized just how ahead of its time Alundra was in terms of its storytelling and themes. At its core, Alundra is a dungeon crawler that is done by some of the key members that worked on Landstalker for the Genesis, and expect to see some similarities to Landstalker, mainly the three-quarter view, top-down. That's where the similarities end in terms of actual story and presentation and themes. A lot of dungeon crawlers, you don't think of a focus on story and storytelling and such strong themes. Alundra turns all that on its side. This has got some of the most dark writing from Working Designs I've ever seen. There's still some humor in it, and it's still great storytelling, but themes of death and religion and fate and depression all make their way into this game. It's a very serious tale, and it gets more twisted as it goes on. At the start of the game, Alundra is summoned to this town of Anoa, and he's had these dreams that are summoning him to go there and try to help these villagers that are dying from their nightmares. And this guardian Lars urges you to go, so you make your way via ship to this island near this town, and on the way there's a horrible storm. The ship snaps in half. Most of the crew is dead. Alundra is left floating unconscious in the water. Eventually he's found and taken in by a swordsman named Jess, who is a character in the village of Anoa, and he's kind of taken him as his own. It is here where the game begins, and you begin exploring the town, meeting the townsfolk. That's just one of the charms of the game, is just how well written each of the non-player characters are. They're all so different and well written. Their dreams are fantastic. Dungeons are so well thought out. There's always new things happening in the dungeons, keep things fresh throughout. Exploring the world map is really fun. A lot of times you won't be able to access certain areas until you come back with a certain weapon, or you've done certain things in the dungeons. The dream walking is a highlight of the game. NPCs and characters around this village that you enter are all so different and uniquely written, and each dream is shaped by the character's personality and their traits, and it's so cool to enter these dreams and see all the different happenings and seeing what characters you can save and wondering what villager is going to be stricken next and hoping you can save them. And the overall goal of the game is to collect these 7 crests throughout the dungeons that you're going to need to defeat Melzus, who is like a bad guy that is genuinely has a reason for being bad, and you'll learn all that and why he's so evil. And I gotta say, at first I wasn't even concerned with like saving the world or fighting this demon. I was so wrapped up in saving the townsfolk and not letting any of them die and becoming so interwoven with their dreams and figuring things out. I just was blown away by the level of writing, the different themes, man. You just don't see themes like this in a Working Designs game. It was so well done, so dark. I couldn't help but fall in love with the twisted tale that Alundra enters the dreams and tries to make things right. And overall, I cannot gush enough about the dark storytelling. The characters all are unique, and I gotta say, the gameplay can be frustrating at times. The three-quarter top-down view does not really lend itself well to platforming. The combat can be kind of frustrating at times when you're surrounded, but the jumping is definitely very difficult with this three-quarter down view. It definitely wasn't made for precision platforming. It can get kind of frustrating falling for the 100th time. But aside from that, everything else is so well done. Top quality cinematics, the music is excellent. Alundra is an amazing game that comes along and kind of takes that action RPG and it just elevates it so high. I think this can stand toe-to-toe with the Zeldas of the world, beyond Oasis. It's that good of an action RPG, so unique, so enthralling. I cannot recommend Alundra enough. A fantastic game. The Lunar series, man, where do I start with this one? This has been a long time coming talking about this. And I've talked about in the past how the PlayStation versions aren't my favorites. The SEGA CD originals will always be my favorites. And that is still true. The SEGA CD versions of Lunar, Silver Star, and Eternal Blue are my favorite games of all time. Lunar 1 being my favorite game of all time. Nothing will change that. And I couldn't have been more excited when I saw that Working Designs was bringing back Lunar for the PlayStation. Big box set, kind of reworked cutscenes, additional cutscenes, updated visuals, and this really aimed to be the definitive version of Lunar, and I was super excited until I bought the game, brought it home, and played it for the first time. Now, I'm not by any means saying that Lunar is a bad game on the PlayStation 1, and chances are, if this is your first experience with Lunar, you're going to like this version better. It's just, a lot of it comes to nostalgia, which version you played first. But for me, playing the SEGA CD version first, and that game being so important to my gaming history, identity, it was an RPG that I experienced for the first time. I'd never really played a game like that before. It was just something that I'd come home from school every day and play from the time I got home from school till the time I was supposed to go to bed, and I'd wait for my parents to go to sleep, and I'd wake up and fire the system back up and just play the game all night and go to school with like no sleep and just be thinking about the game all day while I'm at school. The adventures of Alex becoming a Dragon Master and meeting these friends along the way, and the betrayals and all of the adventure and all of the kind of magic Lunar created. And what I like so much about the original Lunar, and which is still very much present in this PlayStation 1 version, is the simplicity. You know, RPGs that I've played since Lunar, a lot of them are very complicated. There's opposing factions and tons of different kingdoms and generals and different armies with different agendas and so much going on. Lunar kind of takes all that and just throws it out the window and sticks to a very basic coming-of-age hero story. You play as a young boy named Alex who lives in the sleepy town of Berg. And in this town, it was the hometown of his hero, which is Dragon Master Dyne, who is one of the original 4 heroes that banded together to defeat the magical emperor. And it keeps it very basic from there. The original 4 heroes are instantly identifiable. They all have personality. Their backstories are expertly done. And that really helps to connect with these original 4 heroes. Along with simplicity, relatability is also something that is key for Lunar. It's easy to see why Alex looks up to Dragon Master Dyne. He became a Dragon Master against all odds. You could see why he would be so drawn to this character. And Dragon Master Dyne being his hometown of Berg, where Alex is from, he's able to visit this grave every day. And no one really knows if Dragon Master Dyne is dead. He just kind of disappeared after the Magic Emperor was defeated, and there's another mystery going along with that. It keeps the story simple, and it keeps the cast of characters small, and that is its greatest strength. When you keep a cast small like this, it's very important to have likable characters, relatable characters, and that's what Lunar has in spades. It doesn't overcrowd the story with a lot of useless shit that you'll see one guy pop up for a minute and you'll never see him again. Everybody has its place, and it weaves in this story and strong personalities so efficiently and so effectively, and it drew me in from the start, and I was obsessed with Alex becoming a Dragon Master. I wanted him to succeed. I wanted to find out what happened to Dragon Master Dyne. It was really cool to meet the other surviving 4 heroes. The betrayal is there when you meet friends that somehow turn out not to be your friends, and it was a stunning plot twist, and I just was hooked from the start to the finish. The storyline is so gripping in this because it's so simple and relatable. I loved the colorful cast of characters. Now, as it pertains to the PlayStation 1 version, it's still a great game, and there's many modern conveniences at the time that would be seen as improvements. There's not as many random battles. The dungeons have been toned down because the original Lunar on the SEGA CD can be pretty maddening in terms of their random encounter rate, and you can't see the enemies on the map, and you just random battle after random battle, and the dungeons can be kind of mind-numbing. They're just so long and twisting and dead ends, and it can be kind of frustrating. I remember as a kid like pulling my hair out in certain sections, but it's all worth it in the end. Where the PlayStation 1, it's a little more streamlined. The dungeons have been toned down considerably. It's overall a slightly easier experience. My problem is they changed some of the music, and that's one of the things that was so powerful in the original Lunar. Was such an amazing soundtrack. The main town theme of Berg was just such an instantly identifiable tune, and the overworld map, it's just missed. It's missed from this PlayStation 1 version, and it's not as good, and it drags down the experience for me personally. Other key points, changing the storyline around where Luna stays back home in Berg while you're out becoming a Dragon Master, and you're wondering all along how she's doing, or if she's okay and what's happening to her. In this version, she comes with you. It just kind of like messes everything up for me. I couldn't get over that fact, because that was one of the main things in the original. I was so anticipating going back to Berg and seeing her after all this time, and it's just lost in the PlayStation 1 version. But like I said, if you played this version first, you're not going to notice that stuff, and you're going to love the game anyway, because it's masterfully done on the PlayStation. The graphics look better. There's more cinemas, more stuff is fleshed out. I just didn't like it as much as the original. Those are kind of minor nitpicks from a guy that's played the original first, and it's my personal opinion. And so if you only played the PlayStation version, you're going to love it, because it's a great package. It's a great put together box set, and it's still one of the best games of all time, bar none. Lunar is still fantastic on the PlayStation 1, just not up there with the SEGA CD original. Now, Lunar 2 is a game where they didn't really mess with too much in terms of moving around the storyline or messing with the music. It is a game that kind of adds to the original. I actually think I prefer Lunar 2 on the PlayStation because they didn't change the story around. The streamlines do make for a better experience in terms of being able to see the enemies. I do like that stuff better. And they didn't mess with the story too much in Eternal Blue. There's added cinemas and there's so much content. There's always a cutscene around the corner and an animated movie to move the story along. And like Lunar 1, this game takes place 1,000 years after the events of the first one. So what's really cool about Lunar 2 is that you're playing through the eyes of this guy named Hero, and he's got a small flying dragon named Ruby who claims to be a red dragon, which Null in the first game ties in heavily to the white dragon. You'll have to play it to understand what I'm saying, but it's such a great game because you go and you see all the events of the first game through the eyes of Hero, and very much like in the first game where Alex looks up to Dragon Master Dyne, Hero in this game looks at Dragon Master Alex from the first game as his hero, and you get to relive a lot of stuff that happened, like the magic city of Vane coming crashing down in the first game. That's like all spoken of in lore in the second game, and you see all these events that happened and have shaped the world in Lunar 2, and you remember playing them in the first game. That's what's so special about the second game, is all the stuff that you've done in Lunar. You see the after effects and the shapings of the world in Lunar 2, and it was really cool to revisit this world and see all the stuff that you played through, having a lasting impression on the world. A fantastic game. Both of these games on the PlayStation 1 are definitely worth playing. They're masterclass games. They will never be duplicated. I really would love to see a day where there's an actual proper Lunar 3. We were promised a new entry in the series on the DS, and that turned out to be a fucking disaster in Lunar Dragon Song. So the SEGA CD versions are my favorite. PS1, probably a close second. The Lunar on the PSP is a close third. Didn't like the fact they took out the world map, but a lot of it was really super high class with the redrawn graphics. Everything looked really good on the PSP. The Game Boy Advance version was kind of like a pocket summary version of Lunar. They changed some stuff around in there too, like with Nash and a couple other supporting characters. Changed the story in that one as well. It's almost like a totally different game with key elements represented throughout, but overall, SEGA CD originals are the best, in my opinion. These are a very close second. Definitely check out the Working Designs Lunar games on the PlayStation 1. They are fantastic. Now, Elemental Gearbolt is definitely an anomaly in a light gun shooter and kind of a cross-hybrid RPG. On paper, it looks like your standard light gun shooter like Virtua Cop, Time Crisis, House of the Dead, but with a high fantasy backdrop. And when you play the game, it's actually something quite different. The setting is very, almost like a sad, somber tone to it. The world is very desolate, alone. The killer soundtrack is really what propels this game into legendary status. The soundtrack is so freaking good in this game. It just adds so much to each level, each environment. It looks beautiful on the PlayStation 1. Almost has like a Panzer Dragoon look to the world. I get that feeling and that vibe from it, although it couldn't be different in terms of gameplay. The game's story also matches that sad and somber tone. This is a story that has a prince that is basically not even able to save his kingdom. It's doomed from the start, and for that it gets fresh and high marks from me. A lot of games you're able to save or overcome. This one is doomed from the start, and it conveys that in the animated cutscenes, and it's kind of dubbed with that early anime voice acting style to it, where it's over dramatic and almost bad, but it's really good. I really enjoyed the story and the animated cutscenes in between. Now the gameplay is something that I found very addictive. There's no reloading in this game, so you can fire at will. You're able to switch between 3 different gun variants. There is the kind of fire-based shotgun blast, there is the spread shot, like water shot, and then the lightning spread shot that's kind of more limited. And you're able to switch between these 3 forms at will. And the thing is with this, there's a combo system in play where each consecutive shot that you're able to shoot and not miss, you build up this combo system, and you get to the point where you don't want to miss because you built these massive combos, and you also have to look out for these hidden fairies in each of the levels too. And it's really addicting to try to not miss, man, because you built these legendary combo meters, and those combos in turn at the end of the levels able you to level up your character or choose to use it for points. So you have a choice on which to do. I always chose to level up to get my character more powerful, to get more hit points and become more effective in battle, but there's a choice there, and it's really addicting to try to get your score as high as possible without missing, and it becomes very addictive using the gun con, which was one of the early choices. That I don't think the other Kami gun was available at this point. It was just a gun con. It works beautifully in this game. It's a lot of fun. It's very challenging. Very, very challenging. I think the easy mode you play and you unlock the first 3 stages, and then you're able to unlock the normal mode after that, and it gets challenging as it goes on. I absolutely enjoyed my time with Elemental Gearbolt. It is a fascinating game, a fantastic blend of light gun and storytelling, and just overall such a sad, somber tone to this game that I couldn't get enough of. The soundtrack is masterclass. Great working designs, packaging, foil embossed, great manual. Elemental Gearbolt is definitely a breath of fresh air, and I don't think I've ever played another game like it. And this had a really cool edition that came out, I think it was in press releases or early releases, and it had like a assassin's case, and it was all 24 karat gold plated, like briefcase and gun, and man, it sells for like over $3,000 to this day. I'd love to get my hands on one of those sets, but sadly they're so damn expensive. They've been expensive for a long time. released in very limited numbers. It's the ultimate collector's edition to a very unique game. Elemental Gearbolt is one not to be missed. It's a great game, and I can't recommend it enough. Vanguard Bandits is a game that I ended up falling in love with by the time I had finished it and saw its storyline span out, cross over the 5 different endings, the different story arcs, and the different playthroughs. At first, I thought I wasn't going to like this too much. I thought it looked kind of by the numbers, kind of toned down, bland, even strategy RPG, and this is coming off of like monster 80-hour like Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics, huge in-depth strategy RPGs. This one was a breath of fresh air for me. I've always been a huge fan of working designs. They make some of my favorite games of all time. And Vanguard Bandits was really climbed up there by the time I was finished with it. So Vanguard Bandits has you playing as a character named Bastion, and it's ultimately up to you to decide his fate, how the game plays out, based on like choices you make at key story points and different actions in battle. It's going to determine which story path you take, and it's going to influence which one of the 5 different endings that you get. The game's got a ton of replay value, and it's definitely worth going through each scenario. It's going to be the same story, but like 3 different perspectives, all in the same story, and all weaves in greatly. It tells a great story. Character development is spot on. Watching these characters develop through different sides of the story, seeing the different routes you can take, it really is worth to play this game through multiple times. And it's not going to take you that long, maybe 10-15 hours per scenario, maybe a little longer. But it's definitely at its core a basic strategy RPG game. There's no overworld map, there's no exploration. It's a bare bones, equip weapons, equip armor, and then you're going to have a cutscene before battle, and then you're going to have the battle, then you're going to have like an epilogue scene after the battle, all furthering the storyline and, you know, developing the characters further. One thing I loved about Vanguard Bandits was being able to talk to your troops and your party members before battle, kind of getting to know them better, enhancing morale and performance in the battlefield. That was a really cool touch, and further developing the characters. So the battles take place in kind of a top-down view, then shifting to like a more cinematic view when attacking. Now the battle system is a lot of tactical goodness going on. You're definitely going to want to pay attention to your AP points, which are your action points. Each movement takes up a certain amount of points, so you're definitely going to want to consider, do you want to move far and get across the grid, or do you want to kind of take a shorter trip but have a more powerful attack? There's also fate points, which play into battle in ways of counterattacking, defending. When your enemy attacks, you are able to either kind of counterattack or defend, and each time you do this, it's going to take up a certain amount of fate points. And if it reaches 100, your guy's going to like freak out and freeze up and get paranoid and not be able to defend himself properly, and he's going to be wide open for attack. So the tactical gameplay really takes itself into account, not only in the offense and dealing out attacks, but choosing when to counter, when to defend, keeping an eye on your fate points. It's a lot of fun. It's a good system in play, and it keeps the battles fresh and entertaining throughout. Now, the battle isn't done like on foot with different characters like humans, but it's done in these giant mechas, which actually look like almost like giant suits of armor. It's a medieval theme, so the weapons are kind of like swords and spears and different magic spells. It was a really nice change of pace from the tactical RPGs of the time. What makes Vanguard Bandits so special, in my opinion, is definitely the characters, the witty dialogue, the likable characters. They are all so well written. They feed off each other brilliantly. I love the tropes. They're made not to be generic, like the womanizer, Andrew. He's hilarious, and there's the guy that's always constantly hungry, and the General Faulkner makes like an awesome bad guy. I actually made a chart of the 8 different generals and the countries they preside over, and who has screwed over who and who's betrayed who, because when you get to the subsequent playthroughs and you start seeing the story from different perspectives, it's really handy to keep in line who is who and who's betraying who, and it's really interesting. It's very well written. Definitely the story is the high point in these multiple endings and different playthroughs based on your decisions throughout. This is a tactical RPG that would have been normal. It's elevated by the strong dialogue, characterization, and the working designs flair that's been added to this. This is a great strategy RPG. I loved the story, the characters, the take on the different storylines. Vanguard Bandits is one not to be missed for sure. Definitely deserves a spot in your collection. Arctalad collection. Now, very much like Lunar 2, the box is roughly the same size. This is filled with a bunch of great extras. Working Designs really went the extra mile to give us some extra packaging and contents in this special edition, which contains Arctalad 1 through 3. I hadn't known much about the Arctalad series of games. I picked up Arctalad Twilight of the Spirits on the PS2, kind of like a blind buy. Ended up really enjoying that game. I loved the music, the strategy RPG gameplay. Fell in love with the game, so I had to go back and give the earlier games a try. This is Arctalad 1 through 3. Now, in this collection, there's a ton of content, man. The first game, Arctalad, has you playing as a character named Arc, and it's a very short game. It's a game very much like Shining Force, a strategy RPG with very much bare bones presentation. A very short game, maybe 10 hours at most. No exploration, no town exploring, no talking to characters in town. Just a static map to pick to go from. from place to place, and the strategy RPG battles are pretty limited. Overall, it's still a really good game. It is very enjoyable playing as Ark. You are trying to figure out what happened to your father, who is missing and presumed dead, and a really cool story unfolds from there. It's really interesting stuff, and it kept me through to the end, which wasn't very long, but still a quality game, just over really quick. But I was looking forward to the second game in the series much more. I had heard a lot of good things about it, and it did not disappoint. Now, what makes Ark 2 so special is it's not really a sequel, but more of an expansion. The game begins with a brand new cast of characters and a brand new main character named Elk. And this guy's had a really rough childhood. Early on, his village was wiped out and his parents were killed. The events and memory of this event have scarred him so much that he's blocked it out, and he chooses to forget the past. All grown up, Elk becomes a bounty hunter, and he is working for a hunter's guild, and it is all about fame and money. The storyline which makes this so cool is that you're set off to regain your lost memories. The story proceeds from there and begins to intertwine into elements from the first game, and your paths eventually cross with Ark, and it kind of intertwines and weaves this story that combines the first and second game in such a cool way. The characters are all really well done, very likable, voice acting great, script is great. Graphics have seen a notable improvement from the first one. The sprites are nicely detailed. The game is very much opened up. You can now explore towns, talk to townsfolk, explore maps. It's just a bigger game all around. More quality through and through. Ark the Lad 2 is a sequel that fans for the first game have been waiting for. And sadly, I have not played Ark 3 yet. I haven't had time to go through all three games. I've been through the first two, absolutely adored the first two, and the third one is one I will continue on eventually at some point. But I gotta say, what I've played so far, the Ark the Lad collection is very much well worth it. It's quality. It's definitely representative of the time the games came out, so don't go in expecting to be blown away, because the graphics are rather primitive, but they're all nicely drawn 2D sprites, and the second game ups the ambition that much more. The third one looks to up it even further with polygons and CG cutscenes and more storyline, more of everything. But Ark the Lad series is really a fantastic strategy RPG series. Twilight of the Spirits is excellent on the PS2, and these earlier games are no slouch either. This is a great collection and one you definitely need to own. So about midway through the PlayStation's life, Working Designs had created a new label called Spaz Games, and it was kind of a smaller outlet of the division to cater to shooters and different kinds of games other than RPGs. The Spaz label wasn't around for very long, but we did get some great releases on the PlayStation. A couple entries in the Ray series of games from Taito, Ray Storm and Ray Crisis. The first game being Ray Force on the Saturn in the arcade, which was released over here as Galactic Attack. That was the first. The second was Ray Storm, followed by Ray Crisis, which is actually a prequel to Galactic Attack. Now, these games are fantastic, very well made shooters. They are vertically scrolling and they are packed with tons of enemies, bullets everywhere. The gameplay hook of these shooters is that you've got two different attacks. You've got lasers that shoot kind of straight ahead in the front, and then you've got these lock-on missiles that shoot things that are down below. And that's the one problem that I kind of have with these games. It's not really a problem, but it can be very difficult to discern which is considered front and which is considered below. I normally just hold down the fire button for shooting straight ahead, and then I also lock on as much as I can, and I seem to do okay. The games are very challenging. They have great production value, excellent music. The levels themselves are all really nicely varied. So from a technical side, they run very well. They look great on the PlayStation. There's all kinds of extras and bonus levels in the extra mode. They also have the original arcade modes included. Ray Storm is one that I actually prefer. I just think it has the better designed levels and it's more fun to play for me personally. Ray Crisis is no slouch either. I think Galactic Attack might be my favorite still. But these are an excellent lineup of shooters, and they've got great weapons, great specials, excellent level design, great music. If you're a fan of shoot 'em ups, then definitely check out the Ray series. Very much worthwhile into any shooter fan's library. Great production value. You can't go wrong with either of these games as far as shooters go. Now, Thunder Force is a series I go way back with on the Genesis. I played Thunder Force 2, Thunder Force 3, Lightning Force, and I absolutely loved them all. Thunder Force 3 probably being my favorite, although Lightning Force was really good as well. They're all amazing shooters, and Thunder Force 5 is no exception. The levels themselves are amazing. The variety of weapons and the weapon switching in this is the highlight. There's so many cool different weapons to choose from. Trigger finger and skill are being pushed to the max. Very challenging levels and enemy patterns. There's some great bosses in this. The special effects look amazing. There's some debate as whether this looks better than the Saturn version. Some people feel the Saturn version has like sharper, cleaner textures. Some people say the PlayStation version moves smoother. In the end, it's a toss-up. The Saturn might look a little bit better, but the PlayStation version is no slouch. The Thunder Force series has established itself over the years as a top of the line shoot 'em up series, and Thunder Force 5 is no exception. If you're a fan of shoot 'em ups on the PlayStation, you've got a lot to love, and these are just 3 examples of some excellent offerings in the genre. Definitely don't hesitate to pick these up if you see them out there. They're getting kind of expensive now, so definitely pick them up now before they go even further. Some great shoot 'em ups on the PlayStation. Hope you guys have enjoyed taking a look at some of my favorite games on the PlayStation and some great offerings from Working Designs. They definitely have a unique style all to themselves. Their packaging went above and beyond anything that was offered at the time. They are a great publisher. Everyone fondly remembers Working Designs. If you're a fan, you know exactly what I mean. They just got such a soft spot in my heart for those early releases of the SEGA CD, followed by the Saturn. It was great to see them continue on over to the PlayStation. They're a one-of-a-kind company. They'll never be forgotten. I want to thank you all for watching once again and look forward to these Switch and Vita collections coming very soon. Games of War is absolutely nothing without you.